All right, today we're diving into one of my favorite biological puzzles. It's this incredible story about how the biggest animals on land, creatures that should, by all rights, be just riddled with cancer, aren't. We're talking about elephants and how they basically defeated cancer.
So let's jump right in, because the mystery at the heart of all this, well, it's a total head-scratcher. It kind of flips everything we think we know about how cancer is supposed to work on its head.
Okay, so think about it like this, right? Every single time one of your cells divides, it's like a tiny lottery ticket for cancer. There's a small chance of a mutation, a little genetic typo that could kick off a tumor. So the more cells you have dividing over a longer time, well, you're buying a lot more tickets. And your chances of winning this terrible lottery should go way, way up. And this is where it gets just wild. Look at the numbers. You've got a mouse, right? About 10 billion cells, lives for a couple of years. Then you have an elephant. They've got something like 100 times trillion cells. That is just a staggering number, thousands of times more than a mouse. Plus, they live for what, 70 years? So more cells, more time. Logic dictates they should be absolute cancer magnets. But they're not. Their cancer rate is actually less than 5%. That's even lower than for us humans. How in the world is that possible? So this crazy, counterintuitive observation actually has a name. It's called Peto's paradox. And it's pretty simple. The fact that across the animal kingdom, being bigger and living longer doesn't seem to mean you get more cancer. And for decades, this has been one of the biggest questions nagging at biologists. So how did evolution pull this off? How did it solve this giant paradox? Well, the answer, as it so often is hidden deep inside the elephant's DNA. Let's start digging for clues. All right, it's time to meet the hero of our story. It's a gene called TP53. And you can think of it as the guardian of the genome. That's literally its job. It's constantly on patrol, checking for DNA damage. And if it finds a cell that's gone rogue with a dangerous mutation, TP53 swoops in and basically tells that cell, nope, your time is up, self-destruct. This prevents it from ever becoming a tumor. It's an absolutely critical defense. Now, here's the thing. We humans, mice, most mammals, we only have one functional copy of this super important gene. Just one guardian on patrol. But elephants? This is their secret weapon. They don't have one, they have 20. Yeah, you heard that right. 20 copies. One main TP53 gene and 19 extra copies known as retrogenes. It's not a single guard, it's an entire army. Okay, so an army of 20 of these guardian genes, that's a massive evolutionary advantage. But that just leads to more questions, right? Like, where did this army even come from? And when did they all get recruited? Well, the genetic forensics point to a pretty cool origin story. It looks like it all started with a single event where the original TP53 gene got accidentally copied and pasted somewhere else in the genome. Then, through another process, that whole chunk of DNA with a new copy, it just got duplicated again and again and again. You can almost picture evolution just hitting copy-paste over and over for millions of years. And check out this timeline. This is where it gets really compelling. The very first extra copy shows up about 64 million years ago. But the real explosion, when all those other copies started appearing, that kicked off around 40 million years ago. And what else was happening right then? Well, that's exactly when the ancestors of elephants started getting huge. The genetic army grew right alongside their bodies. That's not a coincidence. That's evolution in action. So we've established elephants have this genetic army. Awesome. But how does it actually work? How does it fight the battle against cancer? For a while, researchers had a couple of different ideas about this. One idea was called the decoy model. See, there's this other protein, MDM2, whose job is to destroy TP53 to kind of keep things in balance. So this theory went, maybe the extra copies just act as decoys, drawing fire from MDM2 so the main real TP53 can do its job. Then there was the guardian model. This one suggested something different, that the extra proteins physically glom onto the main TP53, forming a kind of protective shield around it. And the evidence is in. It's pretty clear the guardian model is the right one. Scientists found this one key mutation in all 19 of those extra copies. This little tweak does something amazing. It lets the extra proteins link up with the main one, but it makes them invisible to the destroyer protein, MDM2. It's a perfect shield. So let's just walk through how this works. Step 1, these extra proteins team up with the main TP53 protein. Step 2, they form a physical bodyguard around it. Step 3,
That destroyer protein, MDM2, tries to get in, but it can't, it's blocked. And the result? The cell has a much bigger pool of active TP53 just hanging around, ready to go at a moment's notice. It makes the elephant cells hypervigilant, ready to stamp out cancer at the first possible sign.
But wait a minute. You know, in biology, there's never a free lunch. There's always a trade-off. A superpower like this, it should come with a massive downside, a terrible price. So, what's the catch? Well, we have a pretty good idea of what the price should be. Because when scientists have tried to give lab mice extra copies of this gene, the results are, well, they're a disaster. Sure, the mice become super resistant to cancer, but they also age way too fast, their lifespans get cut short, they have fertility problems, they're smaller. Basically, too much of this guardian gene is like a poison for the rest of the body. And that brings us to the final and maybe most brilliant piece of this puzzle. If the cost is so high, how did elephants get all the rewards without paying the price? Well, it turns out nature found a loophole, an incredible evolutionary loophole. Here's how they did it. Part 1 of the trick. When those first gene copies were made, they were probably broken. They were non-functional, basically just junk DNA sitting there doing nothing. And because they weren't being activated to make any proteins, they couldn't cause any of those nasty side effects. They were totally harmless. And here's the genius part. While those copies were just sitting there dormant for millions of years, they were still collecting random mutations. And over time, some of those mutations fixed the bad parts. They effectively defanged the genes, getting rid of the bits that cause aging and infertility before they were ever switched back on. It's brilliant. Yeah, this quote from the researchers who figured this out just nails it. The costs were minimized because the useful genes evolved through useless non-functional steps. Elephants didn't just get a superpower overnight. They did it with this clever two-step dance. First, make harmless broken copies. Second, wait for those copies to mutate into a safer version. And then, and only then, turn them on. It's an absolutely genius evolutionary workaround. And all of this leaves us with a really exciting, kind of mind-blowing thought. Elephants basically brought these zombie genes back from the dead, tweaked them to be safe, and then used them to build this incredible cancer shield. So the big question is, could we learn from that? Could this amazing story from the animal kingdom inspire a whole new way of fighting cancer in people, using the exact same playbook that evolution perfected millions of years ago?